Magic is something I've always been interested in. I think the absence of black magicians was something that I was intrigued by. When I encountered the story of Black Herman, he just became a perfect muse for all of my wanderings. The subtitle of his autobiography is Magic, Mystery, and Legerdemain. And once I learned that Legerdemain meant sleight of hand, I thought, these are all the things I'm concerned about. So it was a wonderful kind of container, analogous relationship to these ideas and all the things I turn over regularly. So you enter behind a curtain and you are experiencing this momentary theatrical orientation before you then leave and enter into this space awash with light and populated with paintings. I really want the connections that a viewer can draw between sort of bodily experience of actual space and then entering the illusory experience of painterly space. And I'm hoping that there's something that happens in that transfer that can enrich the way a viewer perceives paintings. When I thought about how to construct the show, I really thought about verse and chorus. I thought about these beats that would happen, that would be the chorus. And in this case, those are paintings that are about actual magicians that lived in history. And then the verses were these departures that became more conceptual, more contemporaneous, social critique, ways that notions of magic perform in my imagination. We don't generally think about the lineage of black magicians. So it was really this great honor to be able to pay homage to the lives of these creatives that lived an entire century before, in some cases, that might have had a bit of fame, for a short-lived period. But as a conceptual basis, though, it was an opportunity to anchor what is often an imaginary space into something real. And so I really did not want the show to be taken entirely into the realm of the imaginary. I really wanted it to have a rootedness in real life. And so these biographies and these lives allowed that to happen. I had an experience a couple years ago going to Salvador de Bahia in Brazil. And I had not known that Salvador received more slaves in its port than anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. I just love the parallels between the culture of Salvador and how it points to all these other phenomena in the diaspora of African people throughout the world. We think a lot about enslavement in terms of the bodies moving, but the people themselves have technologies, they have personal histories, they have skill sets, passions, all of these things. And so it really started to open my mind around this notion of magic that travels with the people. I'm interested in the ways we consume painting. So I was attracted to that gallery because the space is compressed. I was very interested in how I could create the experience of procession, how I could create circumstance in which the viewer would actually have to navigate the surface of the painting by walking along the entire length. For me, sculpture is sort of poetry, if my paintings are prose. I use a lot of coal in the sculptures. I'm just interested in coal because you have to put it through a process to refine it in order to extract value. And so I think about that a lot in relation to black labor around the world as we think about many industries that start with the production of coal that are built on histories of black labor. So one of the sculptures is called Albatross, and there's something about his altitude that he's hung at that is kind of high flying, but then the weight of metals and chains, which we associate with a kind of materialism, and also urbanity and negotiating that with other achievements, which could be scholastic or otherwise, but that negotiation and the weight of it all just felt very apropos. As we think about the magic show, it does a couple of things. It's almost its own kind of magic trick that we know this is a gallery, but it feels like a theater. That sort of wowing is a little bit of Legerdemain. But then to enter the actual show, the concept of framing Black Herman on a stage where he could essentially ask the question, do you believe me? That's really what's at the core of the whole show. Do you believe me? There's a painting called Jazzland, which is a portrait of a musical genre. Arguably, jazz music is the only purely American music form. Is this believable? Is this true? Did this man ship himself from slavery to freedom? Is that true? There's a painting called 788 about Fannie Davis, who's a woman who ran numbers in Detroit. And through her story, we learned that the entire numbers running operation was a forerunner to the state lottery system. Do you believe that? It's a bit ridiculous. It's almost as ridiculous as a man in a yellow suit performing magic. To some extent, I'm a magician myself, creating a world. Do you believe it all? Do you believe my point of view, my experience? Is this real? The experiences of people that live under oppression, is it as bad as you say? Can we believe that? So I really think of Black Herman as maybe an allegory for myself. I think artists are magicians. I think artists traffic in illusion. And so that relationship between the real, the unreal, the questioning, and then the physical experience of moving through the space, and the sheer generosity of it all, I hope adds up to something unique.